No, I won't back down.
If he's got useful players and he trains them the right way and he gets them all to do what they can do, well, if he gets them all to do well, the little things they can do, and he merges them all together, it's a form of socialism, without the politics, of course. And they're all helping each other.
Football, it's more than just a game. To billions of us all over the world, it's a way of life. As a result, football has been at the heart of radical struggles since its creation. And yet, not everybody views it with optimism or respect. Football has been seen as the pastime of backward thugs by some, and as a dangerous distraction by others. In this video, I hope to present another side. This is the story of how kicking about an inflated pig's bladder changed and continues to change the world around us. In his dystopian masterwork, 1984, the socialist writer George Orwell once said that as long as the proletarian had neighbours, films, football, beer and gambling to fill up the horizon of their minds, keeping them in control was not difficult. And to be fair, it's not difficult to see where the idea of football might be holding back the advancement of the human race might have come from. About 2 months ago, I played in an anti-homophobia football tournament. One of my team was attacked. Some might well declare this knuckle-dragging buffoon, who also declared Cristiano Ronaldo to be a raging puff, to be the very stereotype of a football fan. In light of that, it would be utterly ridiculous for me to stand here and suggest that football has not played host to its share of violence and reactionary politics. Spanish dictator General Franco was notorious in his fondness of the team Real Madrid, pouring state resources into them and disrupting numerous key transfers to rival club Barcelona, a club who made no secret of their opposition to Franco's murderous overthrow of Spain's democratic government. One example of Franco's influence was Alfredo Di Stefano, arguably the world's best player at the time, who was signing for Barcelona. Franco used a royal decree to prevent paperwork passing that would complete his transfer, meaning Di Stefano could sign instead for Real Madrid. Franco's meddlings propelled Madrid to the top of the game, making them a symbolic success for Franco's new Spain, and helping the nation rebuild international relations through success in European tournaments. Fascist and right-wingers have made great political capital out of football then, either as a propaganda coup or on a more direct recruitment level. It's a tradition that is by no means exclusive to the extreme right, though. You can also spot the sport being used to curry favour with the masses in a liberal society. From the prawn sandwich brigade of billionaire businessmen using beloved football clubs as little more than pricey playthings, to war criminal Tony Blair blying that he is a lifelong Newcastle fan, to the fact David Cameron has the temerity to pretend he knows what football even is. Engaging with football is essential for the wealthy and the powerful because it gives them an air of commonality, a veneer of being all in this together. But that's all it is, a veneer, a stunt, an empty gesture by bigots, murderers and billionaire playboys to the ordinary people whose suffering and exploitation line their pockets.
Hello, cousin! You want a nice job to live in big, fancy Western lifestyle? Well, why not come to Reading FC? We need a highly skilled technician to undertake filming, editing and coding of all first-team match. You will work full-time, unsociable hours for 1 calendar year. You will be required to attend all home and away matches. But don't worry about feeling like a burden, because none of your travel expenses will be paid. You will have no wage and no special chocolate biscuit at the end. And if you don't like it, I will send you to the mines. Cousin, I'm only joking. Or am I?
Football isn't an idealistic land of wine, roses and full communism then. Of course not. Professional football suffers from institutional racism, colossal wealth disparity and many other problems. But it is precisely because of all this that football should be considered innately political, and therefore a key battleground for progress, as opposed to a waste of time. For example, after a campaign against years of mistreatment by business-minded owners, Portsmouth FC became the largest club in England to be fan-owned. If the fans can improve on the club's disastrous run to the bottom of English football, they'll have shown that ordinary people know best how to run the society and institutions that they love and rely upon. The rich and powerful might use football to appeal to us then, but the beautifully unpredictable nature of the game means that such a tactic has the power to backfire spectacularly, becoming the home to resistance and symbolic of potential change. Fascists have also found this to their cost, particularly in Spain. Franco's close association with Madrid worked for him for many years, as he used their European success to rebrand Spain amongst the international community. However, when Barcelona began turning the tide, football had the opposite effect. It gave poor and oppressed Catalonians, who had been forbidden from so much as speaking their own language, a base from which to organise, to represent their resistance to fascism, and to fight for their liberation. When Barca attracted legend Johan Cruyff, he claimed he chose them because he could not bear to play for Franco, before helping Barca win the league for the first time in 14 years, with a famous 5-0 victory at the Bernabeu. That same team triumphed at the Nou Camp days after Franco's death in 1975. With over 700 Catalan flags smuggled into the ground, the match became a carnival for the oppressed, and whilst Franco may have considered himself accountable only to God and history, scenes like this meant his regime was doomed, and ensured a transition to democracy for Spain. Such struggles for emancipation might seem like a million miles away, if you were to regularly grace the terraces of somewhere like Norwich City. It might be easy to assume football is innately apolitical, when the most radical thing that you've ever heard from fans is, "Want to get out of here 5 minutes early? Want to beat traffic?" But when Celtic visited in a pre-season friendly here, I saw things like Republican banners, massive flags that read "Cowden Beef Anti-Fascist," and I heard songs about the struggle against British imperialism, and I was left wondering, are these teams even playing the same game? Barely 4 months later, Norwich players and fans were uniting under the We Are Norwich campaign to oppose the fascist English Defence League. Even amongst the most unlikely seeming supporters then, football can become a popular platform for resistance. This season hasn't only seen Norwich involved in activism though. Another surprise foray into politics came from Millwall FC. They have a brutal reputation as a club, but it would be a grave error of judgment to write them off as just a bunch of thugs. The campaign to save Lewisham Hospital from closure by Tory cuts really took off when Millwall FC moved their FA Cup tie with Aston Villa forward so that their fans could attend the local anti-cuts protest in January. A club previously labelled as right-wing thugs participated in a progressive campaign to protect the rights and services of ordinary people in their community, and continue advertising and attending marches to this day. Meanwhile, perhaps the two biggest scandals of the past year have also provoked some of the most promising reactions amongst football fans and clubs. These scandals were the appointment of Paolo Di Canio as manager of AFC Sunderland and the very continuing career of Liverpool striker Luis Suarez. Suarez seems to be doing his best impression of a Hollywood supervillain. Over the past 2 seasons, he's racially abused Patrice Evra, scored a deliberate handball against lower league opposition, and most recently, he's even bitten someone again, in a seemingly unending quest to drag the proud name of Liverpool FC through the mud. The one thing he hasn't done yet is stolen candy from a baby, but that only seems to be because he'd be more interested in eating the baby. The reaction by the club has at times been deplorable, making any excuse for their playmakers' crimes and adopting the attitude that talent excuses all manner of individual misdemeanours. It was certainly not a philosophy that Liverpool's glory days were built on, and the club has suffered as a result. However, not everyone is on Suarez's side. Pressure has been growing thanks to Liverpool's anti-fascist no-platform campaigners, and with his latest biting-themed misdemeanour, families of victims of the Hillsborough disaster condemned Suarez after he asked Liverpool to pay his fine to their charity. He clearly thought it was a PR masterstroke, but they stated they'd rather he stop disgracing the shirt in the first place. Di Canio, meanwhile, a self-proclaimed fascist who said in his autobiography that Mussolini was misunderstood, arrived at the Stadium of Light with just 7 games of the season remaining, but wasted no time in causing mass controversy. After the resignation of David Miliband from Sunderland's board, the media suddenly remembered Di Canio's past, having been suspiciously mute up until then. Di Canio claimed Italian fascism was not about racism, and is therefore fine. However, even if you accept that flimsy excuse, Sunderland is a working-class community with deep trade union and socialist roots, and that's something that conflicts entirely with the ideology of Mussolini, who crushed Italian unions. So, when the Durham miners got wind of Sunderland's new boss, they began a campaign of protest, which they pledged to end only when Sunderland participated in a new anti-fascist campaign. Perhaps the most pleasing reaction, though, came from Aston Villa's fans, who brought a banner to their 6-1 victory over Di Canio's team, reading, "Your grandad didn't play for fascists, he shot them." Such was the level of national criticism that days after refusing to answer questions on it, Di Canio was finally forced to publicly deny his fascism for fear of losing his job.
So, Paolo, people have been asking you to come clean about your political persuasions.
I will categorically state I am not a fascist. I love all the people, the men, the women, the little babies, even the filthy, even the lovely Jews.
That's all very well, but how do you explain the photos of you doing a Nazi-style salute?
I was singing I'm a Little Teapot. It is my favourite song. I'm a little teapot, short and stout. Here is my handle, here is my spout. Hail, people of the heroes! Hail, immortal fatherland!
Alan Hansen, a man who can say nothing about literally anything, was amongst those who took an absurdly spineless view of both incidents. He labelled Luis Suarez a disgrace for his various crimes against humanity, before insisting Liverpool would be the only losers should they shove the striker out of the door, and Hansen said of Di Canio that regardless of all his controversial politics, there are obvious pros to having a man with such energy and commitment in charge. Such nonchalant attitudes toward totalitarianism beg the question what pundits like Hansen would have made of world politics in the 1920s.
So, what do you make of this chap, Mussolini, then?
Well, obviously, aside from the countless controversies and obviously his infamously hard line, he's pals with Franco and Hitler, and he may have murdered and imprisoned a few people along the way, but what's good to see coming from the lad, I think he's got a lot to offer, is charisma and passion. That's been lost from the modern game along the way, and you know, he cries during his speeches. That's one of the best things about him, you know. One of the things you can never accuse Mussolini of not doing is caring. So I think at the end of the day, his raw charisma is a great thing for the Italian game.
Fortunately, fans across the country have been far less forgiving of violence, racism and fascism in the cases of Suarez or Di Canio. They might be participating in a sport that left-wing academics have snobbishly written off as bourgeois distraction. But on the contrary, it is precisely by doing so that they are coming into contact with political ideas and conflicts which will encourage them to change the world. Which brings me full circle to the events of the Battle of Carrow Park. Football undeniably plays host on occasion to reactionary or barbaric elements, the last surviving thugs of a brutal past of hooliganism. Certainly, the stands have served as forums for bigots and small-minded fools who try to use them as platforms for their ugly and outdated dogma. But that's not where you'll find the soul of football. At its heart, it is a theatre that embodies community, acceptance and diversity, a collective kicking toward a shared goal, and it's one that the left must engage with. Campaigns like the Justin Fashanu tournament help to reach and change the minds of ordinary people, to inspire them to come together and to empower them to take action against bigotry and homophobia. Football, then, is so much more than a bunch of peasants chasing a pig's bladder around a muddy field. It is a stage upon which the struggle for humanity's soul is played out on a weekly basis. It is the people's